trust digitally. Because again, we're talking to robots, we're talking to algorithms, everything's subjective, so.
I'm not sure what you might mean by social signals. Does that mean that you have a Facebook page, Twitter account that you're posting regularly?
And you're actively posting and engaging. Again, all that's measurable, right? Frequency, duration, quantity, and it's all measurable by a non-human entity. So.
And are you saying that those types of things then raise you up on where you're going to
search
on a search?
Yeah. And getting back to the name, address, and phone consistency, so if you have a Facebook profile and you wrote it on a Thursday afternoon on your third cup of coffee and you were trying to get creative and it doesn't match your About Us page or it doesn't match any of your additional profiles, it's not doing as much good as if you have your About Us business description, same name, address, and phone consistency, and that's listed on the information of each of your social media profiles. You want to keep it consistent.
Do you have to always then be using those? Like, if you set up the Facebook and the Twitter, are you always having to update those daily or whatever in order to?
As frequently as possible. It's we set up programs where it's done on a weekly frequency and a monthly unique article content, and we go up from there. So if you're not there at the time that the conversation is happening, then you kind of miss the opportunity. It'd be like coming into a networking room an hour late and trying to network.
But I mean, that's very time consuming.
It is without a doubt time consuming. And
do
this
all
is
of
where
these things.
Businesses now have to take a look at their overall marketing strategy and say, is the web a potential option for me to increase revenue? And how much do I need to invest in that in order to see that return? I mean, it really becomes a strategy decision where, if maybe attending local expos and events is where you're drawing most of your clients, then that's great. But if it's more of a national audience and you're looking to attract people on a volume scale, the most inexpensive way to do that on the front end is digital.
Can you talk a little bit more about user interaction signals?
Sure. So this would be on your Google Analytics page. It's new and returning visitors. It's on-page duration. It's bounce rate. All these are factors. If 98% of my traffic comes to my website, clicks on one page, and leaves within 10 seconds, then I'm going to have a high bounce rate. Google's going to see that and know that I'm probably not providing value to those people. And again, that can be measured digitally, right? That's not subjective. That's not somebody sitting there, yes or no, on a click scale. That's
So it's
3 or 4
exclusively
factors.
on your website and how users are interacting with your website.
This is a huge gradient here now, where it's website, it's social, it's how you're engaging. I don't think it's email indicators, but anything communication related that goes back and forth with your business is a user interaction. So who would be an end user of your website?
And on the trust, that's just not contradicting yourself in different media?
So it's the name, address, and phone consistency. It's having a consistent business description. All these directories, whether it's white pages, yellow pages, whether it's Yahoo, Bing, Google, if they're conflicting and contradicting, then
Just
they're
the
not.
facts, or do you mean like the content?
So as you go through and start to add some of these directories, there's aggregators that'll do it for you if you just enter information, and usually there's a handful of the name, address, and phone stuff, or phone, email, fax, etc. Business description will have a long form and a short form description. So that's what I'm primarily looking at when I'm talking about consistency and trust. The other is that topical trust authority, where I'm not sharing articles on my blog about cooking in order to rank in marketing, right? So you just want to be on topic, and the more traffic back to your website, the more relevant pings on the crawler that are pointing back to you.
Great. And last question on that. So you said that on the user interaction signals that in Google Analytics there's probably a bunch of criteria and you can actually see how you're scoring.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see whether you're doing well or not on those things. What about social signals and trust? Is there a way to see how you're doing on those?
Sure. So social, each of the social media has insights now that you can go into, and on our monthly reporting, we're pulling screenshots directly from those insights. And initially, if we're starting from scratch with someone and they don't have a large audience for their business, all we're looking for is a trend line moving up with likes, follows, shares, and then page interactions. As we get into larger clients and we're starting to see smaller incremental growth, we can get into social media marketing. We're actually paying to do sponsored posts and stuff and get into a larger audience. A successful campaign recently is with a national ladder company where they do ladder racks, toolboxes for pickup bags, and then any interior structures for like contractors and such to put in their vans. They had just purchased a large number of weather guard pickup truck boxes. So we were able to target that specifically to general contractors, electricians, plumbers with Ford, Dodge, and Chevy pickups. So, you start to get real specific, and you want to talk about efficient use of your marketing spend. Now, if you're not presenting the ad to a general broad audience, but a more specific audience, you're just going to see those return numbers increase.
What were you saying about on-page and off-page something?
Sure. So, on-page and off-page is kind of the two subheads anytime you talk about SEO. And I have an SEO report that I'll go through later, and this will kind of clear up some of the confusion. Again, so digging into AdWords for the strategy, for the actual data behind which keywords are relevant to your business is important. You want to incorporate those keywords into your title tags. So the back end, so front end of a website is what you're actually engaging with, what your customer would engage with. The back end is when you get into what, if you're running a content management system, or behind that even, is the development code. So each page has a header, right? If you're looking at it as an outline, the header would be marketing services. And you just want to make sure that you're optimizing for marketing services with everything else that's on that page. So that's the keyword tied to the title tag, and then even how you title the URL for your page. So, jrsmarcom.com/SEO. You should have a page for whatever specific service that you're offering, and then that's the term that you're optimizing for, is the subtitle of that page. And then the structure of the page, bold H1 and H2 tags is really just bold copy for each of your paragraphs so that it outlines, and as the page sees, now I'm going to this site who's about marketing, I'm on a page for SEO, and the title says SEO, the header to the content says SEO, and subsequent headers fall in line with that. Same thing goes for images and videos. If you store images, you don't want to say brown-haired guy in a suit. You want to say, SEO Arlington Heights, whatever, and that's, that trickles down to, again, using your keywords to title your images appropriately. And this is all, again, on-page stuff, the back end, you'll be working with your developer. Responsive design is a big one. As of April of last year, if you don't have, it's mobile responsive or mobile friendly. If your website doesn't present uniquely on a mobile phone, which means it's not just your normal site shrunken and you can't really navigate on it, has a separate interface that's more friendly to mobile phone usage, you can't even rank in SEO starting last April. So that may have been a reason, Janice, right, why your site was devalued if you weren't mobile friendly.
Because it doesn't show up on the iPhone good enough?
Yeah, let me see if I,
Format.
so I'm not there. Okay, so sometimes sites, if you're to pull up a search, it'll say mobile friendly underneath it. And I thought that I might have pulled up a screenshot of that, though.
But you're saying they all have to be mobile friendly unless, or otherwise you won't rank in Google.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, and sites that were ranking at the top of the page that didn't update, and there's clients I work with that can't update because they're using a proprietary inventory management system, and it's just a huge expense to update to a mobile-friendly site. And they have to go different strategies, where we can get into some of the social content marketing strategies to drive traffic instead of just relying on search. So there's many different ways to skin this cat. And then a mix of short and long form content for that topical trust that we referenced. This goes towards the ranking factor of engagement, new and returning visitors, and page duration, etc. So you get them to stay for a 400-word article, great. Now tease them and get them to read the 1,500-word article so that you're providing value, you're keeping them on the page, and that's going to impact your ranking. So the off-page factors, again, we talked about social engagement, forum postings, if there's, particular industry-specific forums that your potential customers will be going to get additional information, it's good to engage in those, but again, another time-consuming activity. Search engine submission, that's kind of the directory listings we talked about along with directory submission, your Google, your Bing, your Yahoo, your Yellow Pages, White Pages, to say there's hundreds of thousands that you can submit to is not stretching the truth. Again, if you see Yelp at the top of a lot of search places, in essence, they're a directory, right? So they get all the volume, and then they're able to sell advertising on their page because they're ranked so high because of the average search volume. Reviews are fantastic, and again, speaking engagements and cross-promotion, that would be independent to your specific industry and outside of work involvements. So there's always good versus bad. I referenced white hat is generally accepted best practice. Black hat is when you start to do things that you may get dinged for if Google researches. And it's kind of scary to think about, how much Google is in our daily lives and how much, control they have over all these results. You want to think about free will, and I can search for anything. Well, if somebody's serving you up the top 5 results, is that really free will, or are you being steered to that decision? So, interesting perspective. So, yeah, right. That's a philosophy discussion for a later day. So again, in essence, when I'm stepping back and approaching SEO, I'm doing the same thing I did when I was in community banking. I'm looking to build a community around a product or service. And how do you build a community, right? It's engagement, it's interaction, it's providing value, it's being inviting and making sure people want to come back. So when we're talking about building a community around your product or service, you can do that online just as easily as you can do it in person. And it's a long play, just like it is in person. You don't start out, have 500 people visit your site unless you're doing things the right way in order to steer them there and keep them coming back. So, especially for local, regional businesses, you want to leverage your local geography as much as possible. That can be very powerful. And, as I mentioned in the Google My Business, My Local page results, and then engaging in social media to turn fans into client advocates. And again, the correct titling of pages rounds out to white hat. Black hat tactics, we've all seen, buy 100 links back to your site for $9.99, anytime we're on social media, or sometimes those things pop up in our email. Commenting in forums with links back to your site, that's kind of transparent, it's kind of a self-serving activity, so you get dinged for that. Hacking sites and linking to them. I will share a client that I was working with prior to launch, so I didn't even have access to their site at the time, but in the transition from final build-out approval to approval and transition to launch, they called me and they're like, my site is now, looks like a jersey site for NBA jerseys. And somebody had hacked their site and was leveraging the couple thousand visitors on a monthly basis to sell jerseys. So we were able to get control of the site back and get their site launched, and they haven't had any issues since. But why somebody would do that is beyond me. And then again, poor quality info or content. So there's so many terms around content marketing. I think it's now it's like 10 times content. You want the solution that you're writing about to be 10 times better than the best solution that you can find online. So I don't know that that's I don't think any of us are looking to become thought leaders necessarily in an industry. We're just looking to educate an audience of potential customers. So that's a stretch, I think, for anybody to say, I'm going to write the best kind. Yeah.
Are there any ideas as to how search engines would be able to know or judge quality for content? Is it like links?
Well, it's the same engagement
words?
numbers that we're talking about. Is if I launch an article and it languishes in the internet nowhere for years versus something that's being shared actively on social media, driving a lot of traffic back to the website, etc. So it's a quantitative factor to judge a qualitative, subjective feeling, but again, it's a robot. It's not someone's. So.
What do you mean by leverage local geography? It's probably stuff you've already been talking about. I just wasn't sure what you meant.
No, you know, if you're in Downers Grove, don't try marketing to Aurora unless you service a wide enough audience to make that worthwhile. So, again, everything, I can draw a geo fence around this room and serve advertisements to each one of your smartphones. It's called geofencing, and you know, that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying leverage your local geography. It is, you know, targeting, and for search in particular, it's if Chicago is your market, great, but if Arlington Heights is your geography and focus locally, you're able to climb that ladder more quickly and expand. Okay, so
Chicago was your target market for Northwest Illinois. How would you handle that?
probably, so with different, you can do areas served pages and create separate standalone pages for your service based on revenue. So if 30% of my business is coming from Barrington, then I put 30% of my search effort into Barrington as an area served and create a separate page for Barrington carpet cleaning. And you would create a separate structured page. So what you would optimally be optimizing the page for would be Barrington, your service. Or whatever geography that would be. They're getting into regions, you know, with northwest suburbs, northwest Indiana, this and that. So you can structure pages for that. I think the bigger audience you're targeting on a grander scale, the more competitive it is. So, you know, that correlates with the spend ultimately, or the time investment, if not spent.
Can you, before you go on, could you give me an example of a forum? What forum means?
So you're a piano teacher?
Yeah.
Musicians of Arlington Heights, if you were to type that in, there'd be forums.
The search word,
No, it's like a forum,
a group,
yeah,
music groups.
right,
Oh, discussion.
yeah, exactly, thank you. Okay, so, again, I keep saying the science of SEO, over 200 indicators, how do you know what's broken if you're not ranking? So, the report that I use breaks it down real easy. We've got smiley faces and frowny faces as an overall indicator. And what I'm going to do is open up the report to show you guys what some of the components are. And again, this is less of an art and more of a science. So this is a client, a chiropractor out of North Carolina that was back in August, or generated in August, it was back in March. So we talk about off-site SEO, on-site local SEO, search ranking average for organic, local search ranking average, Google local listing score, and local directory listing score. So these are the overall headers, and you can see they're doing all right, but for some reason they weren't optimizing their Google My Business page, so they got poor for the local listing. Good question.
No, interesting.
So Moz Rank, Postescape, that's another source for you. Moz is a big SEO aggregator of information.
How do you spell that?
M-O-Z. So again, pages indexed in Google, site authority, and again, authority is a combination of things, not only the topical trust here, but backlinks and competitor ranking information, etc. It's, you know, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. If your competitor is ranking first, there's tools you can use to pull to see what they're doing successfully and what they're doing that you're not doing in order to sharpen up your strategy moving forward.
How do you do that? How do you find out those tools?
Pardon?
How do you find out the tools?
I can share those with you.
What was the one that used the smiley faces? What place was that?
Oh, this is an SEO report. This is a proprietary tool that I use, but if you were to type in free SEO report, there would be, some of them are more analytic, some of them,
Okay.
you know, this was easily translatable into a client meeting, so I pulled the smiley faces out. So again, they do an inbound link count, and literally, in order to get these SEO reports, there's free ones everywhere. You just enter in your website and your industry, maybe your contact information, and they'll run full reports. And it'll give you an indication of what you're doing well and what you need to improve on. Domain age, which I didn't cover, is how long has your URL been reserved and how long have you been in business, and then where it's located. You know, if you're doing a free or very inexpensive URL registry and maybe offshore, and that would be a ding. If you're a local business, you want to keep that domestic.
And if you haven't been in business as long, you get dinged for that?
It's one, yeah, one of, you know, hundreds of factors, so I wouldn't hang your head on that. No,
Yeah.
there's other things that are more valuable. And no, you know, I can't sit there and tell you, I know that's a 3-point ding versus a
Yeah.
7-point ding. It's all reverse engineered through,
So Joe, is your business measured by how long your domain has been there, or your actual business has been there? Probably the same thing, but it may not.
well, not at all, no. If somebody's been in business for 50 years, they haven't had a domain for that long, right? So digitally, we're talking exclusively in the registered time of your domain. And again, that's including how far out that you have it registered for. So they can say, you know, registered for 9 years, expiring in 2, and then, you know, what legitimate business is gonna stop paying for their domain in 2 years, right? They're probably gonna reserve it out for 10 years, so nothing happens with it, no questions are asked about it.
So if you buy a domain name, is it gonna restart as soon as that transaction happens and you bought it, or is it gonna keep that history of how long it's been there?
You mean, you're buying one that's been prior
Yeah.
occupied? Yeah, it'll reset the timer
Okay.
as a new.
Okay.
How often do these rankings change?
They just changed. They just changed again. I mean, literally, these are snapshot information. So again, these were keywords I pulled from their website, and this is their search rank at a given time, at a given moment in time and space, right? So chiropractic care, they were a chiropractor out of North Carolina. In Google's organic, they were 21st. In Google Maps, the Google local page that I referenced, they were 7th. And then it goes up to 50. So these greater than 50 means they weren't even ranking. Bing had them at 43. So, you know, it's 80, 10, 10. You know, that's not accurate, but 80% of the search market is through Google. You know, 10% is through the other two each to total 100%. But, you know, Google owns this sector, and any other players are small players at that. But again, that could be a targeting strategy that you're looking to get ranked in Bing. Target those people, and that may make sense demographically, right? There's a lot of different things through your client persona exposition that can, again, make impacts in how you approach your budget allocation.
So when you talk ranking, from your experience,